So these waves are 4 in number. We have first wave feminism, we have second wave feminism, we have third wave feminism, and we have fourth wave feminism. Now the first wave feminism begins in 1848 with the beginning of this feminism. And as I said, this first wave movement was all about the Seneca Falls Movement of 1848. In 1848, there were some 300 women which gathered, and men also included, which gathered to discuss about certain rights of the woman. And some of the core issues of the first wave movement was right to the property for females. The other major issue was right to vote for the females in Western society, opposing the ownership of married women by their husband. These were 3 major issues that first wave feminism came up. And later we know that the efforts of first wave feminism were successful. It was in 1860 that the husband's ownership of the married woman was revoked. The husband's ownership meant that if a woman was married to a person, to a man, and if she hired anything, say for example someone was a businesswoman. Now if she was a businesswoman, she might have a good bank balance, she might have an established business, she might have some property. Now once she was married, all her property naturally was inherited by her husband or became the property of her husband, and there was no right after that on those things of the woman. But in 1860 an act was passed in America which gave rights to the woman, that she was the sole owner of all her property, whatever that may be, which she had inherited before her marriage, and even once when she got married to someone, that property belonged only to her, and her husband had no legal rights to interfere in the property of that woman. So that was another important achievement of the first wave feminism. And regarding the right to property, which was again an important issue for the first wave movement, was also granted to the females in 1848 itself with the Seneca Falls movement. And regarding the rights to vote, which was the most important aspect or issue of the first wave feminism, which was raised in 1848, and later after subsequent revisions and attempts and efforts, it was on 10th of December 1869 that the American woman was granted the right to vote, and American woman became the first woman to have achieved the right to vote. And then rest of the world followed, other countries followed, and the right to vote was given to the female. And even in Indian context, the right to vote was given to the woman, and right to property was granted to the woman in India in 1937. Now that was about the first wave feminism. This first wave feminism was about the rights of the woman, right to property, right to equality, right to the ownership of the property that she had before the marriage, and right to vote. Now, after these things were granted to the female in our society, there were some issues which continued in our society, or which continued to haunt the females. And therefore, there was a need for second wave feminism. Thus, the second wave feminism rose during 1960s and continued up to 1980s and 1990s. That is the second wave feminism. Second wave feminism was led by Betty Friedan. Second wave feminism is considered to be one of the most radical feminist waves that we have had, from first wave feminism to the fourth wave feminism. The second wave feminism had a great influence of Marxism and psychoanalytic criticism. Second wave feminism was not that political as first wave feminism was. Now you will see that first wave feminism is exclusively political, but second wave feminism was not exclusively political. It was more of an academic effort by the females, because these first wave feminism were not concerned about the academics, about the position in education, or about the education kind of a thing, but second wave feminism would go more into these things. And the issues that second wave feminism came up with were equality and discrimination was one of the important issue of the second wave feminism. By equality and discrimination, I mean, after granting right to vote, right to property, the females continued to be discriminated based on the sex, based on the gender. The discrimination could come in the form of jobs. For example, if a woman was provided the job, she would be provided low wages for the work that she would do. The work would be almost equivalent to the men, but the wages would be low. So that could be a form of discrimination that they would go through. And even when it comes to the education, they will not be provided education at par with the men. So second wave feminism raised these concerns.
Another important issue or challenge for second wave feminism was sexuality and reproduction. Back then in 1960s, females in Europe were considered to be, homemakers only, who are there in the society only to reproduce, only to give birth to the children and to rear them up. And feminists of the second wave considered this as, a sign of oppression, wherein female who was responsible for giving birth and making up the family was made solely responsible for this, and she had no right of taking any decision whether she wants children or not. So second wave feminism would fight for this cause of reproduction, and they insisted that they must be given the right to use contraceptives, or the right to decide, the right to decision making whether they want to reproduce children or not. That was another aspect of this second wave feminism. Another important thing that this second wave feminists did was regarding low paid jobs, which I discussed earlier also, that they believed that after first wave feminism, females in certain sectors of society, in certain sections of society, were provided the right to do job, the right to employment, but if they did the job which was done by a man and the time and quantity and quality of the job was same, still females were paid lesser wages as compared to the men. So they said that we must be given equal wages also. Our jobs must not be low paid jobs. Another important aspect that challenge or issue that second wave feminism rose was regarding the use of lipsticks and high heels and tight jeans and low necks by the females. And second wave feminists believed that this is something that females should not do, because they believed that this is a patriarchal notion that females would wear high heels just to match the height of the men, because the tall women look more attractive to men. Therefore females would be wearing high heels, or they would be wearing lipstick, or they would be wearing revealing clothes. These things are liked by men actually in the society, so they have got that patriarchal element in it. So that was another thing that the second wave feminism would go against. And they also said, rather, the second wave feminist at one point took all these things, that is lipsticks and high heels and other things, and threw them into the dustbin. So these were some of the issues and challenges of the second wave feminism. But as I said earlier, that this second wave feminism was more radical in its approach to rectify the society, and it went off scene, off track very quickly. Or it boiled down very quickly. There were a good number of reasons for second wave movement to boil down quickly or abruptly, and one of the reason was the radical attitude of the feminist, of the second wave feminist, and second was the Vietnam War. Because at that time, when this second wave feminism was prevalent in Western society, there were many other movements which were raising voice to end the Vietnam War, and that was more of a dominant issue at that time, which didn't give enough space for second wave movement to continue for a long time or to make an impact. So what happened towards the end of this movement, the second wave movement, the feminists of the second wave feminism, restricted themselves to the academics, restricted themselves to educational institutes, to universities, where they would mostly publish books regarding females rather than come out and actively participate in political issues of females. That is why there are certain sections of the feminist critics who would consider that second wave feminism failed in its issues to fulfill its issues and challenges, but then the others believe that second wave feminism did much better in academics rather than in practical or in political field. Now, since second wave feminism could not come up to the expectations of the feminists, or did not solve all the problems of feminists, so there was bound to be a third wave of feminism which came in 1990.